A weekend edition of 100% Canucks. John Shannon, Landon Ferraro. Landon, we're two-thirds of the way through the California trip, a victory in Anaheim and a frustrating loss in San Jose, where the Canuck power play went 0 for 8. And in many ways, I don't know about you, but I thought the Canucks, dominated the second half of the game and just couldn't get the puck past Askarov.
Yeah, I mean, for the Canucks this season, not nearly as much as last year, but have in some games struggled to get shots on net and kind of control that part of the scoreboard. And like last night, they outshoot them by 10. They get 34 shots, and there was some dumb penalties taken by San Jose, but there was also a good amount that were made because the Canucks were moving their feet and controlling the play. Like they were doing what you wanted to do. And, they end up losing 3-2, but at the same time, they go 0 for 7 and there was opportunity there. It just, they could not figure out the power play. And that's ultimately what cost them the game. And it's tough to see because, again, like they played a pretty good game. They just couldn't get that next goal.
And the one guy that I didn't know enough about, I'll be honest, continues to impress me, and that's the guy in goal. Boy, he was good again.
Yeah, he was. I was really happily surprised from both games with him. Not that I was expecting him, Tolopilo, to go in and get lit up, but it's been a long time since last year that he played a game. He was coming off an injury of his own, and right jumping into the ultimate rotating door up in Vancouver right now, and he goes in. He's been steady. He's battled his socks off, and in really giving the Canucks a chance. He gets the win the other night in Anaheim. He makes pretty much all the saves again last night. He just couldn't find the run support, and that's tough, but he's got to be really happy, and the Canucks got to be really happy that, especially after trading Shelovs and him going on and doing what he's doing in Pittsburgh, it's really a nice thing to see that, yeah, they have another goalie in the system that has come in and given them 2 really good games.
Our guest today on the show, Landon, is Matt Cooke, who is presently living in Vernon as the general manager and head coach of the BCHL's Vernon Vipers. Your career, your time crossed paths with Matt at any point?
No, not really. I believe he retired the year that I had in Boston. So I just missed him, but I'd be out with summer skates with him when the Canucks would slowly start to filter back into Vancouver before training camp, and I was playing in the minors or even just before that, coming out of junior and having all the summer skates in Van. So it was out a little bit with him. Got to know him a little bit more this past summer. If you remember, I went to that NHL broadcasters training camp, and Cooke was actually there. He had committed to coming and taken the job in Vernon like 4 days before he got there. So it was honestly, it was really interesting getting to talk to him about the year that is now going on and how excited he was to get to Vernon and get working with that group of kids.
Well, he was a fan favorite for parts of 9 seasons in Vancouver, and at a time when many would describe the Canucks he played on was the most exciting team of the franchise's history. When you think about Daniel and Henrik and the West Coast Express, Marcus Naslund and Todd Bertuzzi and Mark Crawford coaching. Yeah. So it's Matt Cooke, general manager, coach of the Vernon Vipers, on this edition of 100% Canucks.
I won't keep you long. Darren Millard with a tip for everyone who loves great hockey podcasts like this one. John, Shannon, and I host the OG of 100% Hockey, coming your way multiple times a week. The guest list is the best you will find. Multiple shows a week ensures you won't miss out on any news, and we dig even deeper into the biggest stories around the NHL. Most of our guests are also friends, so I promise there'll be more conversation beyond the X's and the O's. John really does get bored with that after a while. So join us for 100% Hockey. The name says it all. Subscribe now while you enjoy thinking about it. And enjoy.
Welcome back to a weekend edition of 100% Canucks. Pleased to be joined by the head coach of the Vernon Vipers, 9-season member of the Vancouver Canucks, Matt Cooke, who joins us from the Kootenays. How are you, Matt?
I'm well, thanks.
Good. So, what do you remember first about playing for the Canucks?
I guess that my first memory there is Pat Quinn. The year that I was drafted and went to training camp, Pat was head coach and GM at the time, and kind of took a liking to me and allowed me to play a few preseason games, and kind of really inspired me to want to be there, full time, knowing I still had a year of junior left. And then the next year making it, Mike Keenan was then the head coach, and I came in as a certain type of player, and Mike didn't allow me to be that player, so I had to figure out a way to be successful. And I think that Mike did a good job in guiding me to being relevant on a team that I was going to play fourth line minutes.
Like, your draft year, you popped pretty good that year. You had 95 points and 45 goals, and so were you one of the kind of classic guys of, you were a bit of a scorer, and then you get to the pro level and all of a sudden you got to find a way to play and find your minutes early?
Well, I mean, you come into a locker room and there's Marcus Naslund, Mark Messier, Alexander McGillney. Like, it doesn't take long to figure out that you're not going to be on a top two line. And physicality was something that I was always in my game. In junior, it was a staple. Like, I was a points guy, but I was a guy that also was physical and fought. And so, to me, having Mike Keenan say, we're better off if you don't skate the puck over the offensive blue line, I was okay with that because I wanted to fly on Orca Air, not ride on a bus and play 3-on-3s in Syracuse, New York. That was more important to me than digging my heels in the sand and complain for a top six role.
When you're like that first year in the American League, you played 37 games and had 33 points, but you had 119 PIMs as well. Like, was that you running around a little bit and then having to fight, or were you just so excited to be in the pro game that you were just going?
I think it's a little bit of everything. Like, Jack McElhargy was the coach in Syracuse that year, and Mac, like, if I wasn't tired, he kept me out on the ice. Like, he played me a ton. And, the second year when I started there in the minors, Stan Smeal was the coach, and Steamer was the same way. I'd come to the bench. He's like, "You tired?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Stay out." So like the jump for me from junior to in the American League was non-existent. Like, it was the same thing, but the jump from the American League to the NHL was the largest one.
Did that change when Mark Crawford took over for you?
Mark gave me more opportunity, and I think I earned it through, my consistent play. Mark had a role in the Vancouver Canucks as a player, and he helped me kind of guide and shape my role. And he, thriving on the penalty kill is something that earned me more opportunity 5-on-5. And, it got to the point where Mark believed in me, and last minutes, late minutes in games, key games, I found myself on the ice.
It didn't hurt that the guy that liked you in Syracuse, Jack McElhargy, ended up being an assistant coach on that team either, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jack obviously, heart and soul kind of guy. loves a guy that, was in Philly for the Broad Street Bullies and, understands what it's like to stick together and be a team. And, he liked how I played. So he ran the defense on our group, but he was a fan for sure.
Yeah, the fascination for me, Matt, is that with all when you got back and established in Vancouver with all the stars on that team, and you mentioned like Marcus Naslund, Todd Bertuzzi, this was the West Coast Express at its best, with Brendan Morrison being the centerman and Daniel and Henrik coming into their own. You were as popular amongst the hockey fans in the Lower Mainland as anybody, because people loved the way you played the game in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't conserve energy. I was a shift by shift guy that whatever the team needs, the logo on the front was always more important than the name on the back for me. And I gave my heart and soul to the Vancouver Canucks, but also to the community. And I think that one thing that really set me apart in Vancouver from a fan perspective is, like, if there was anything going on in the community, I was there. And that was instilled in me. Brian Burke, I'll never forget it. My second year there, he asked me what I was going to do that day. I thought I was going to play some video games in the hotel or something. And he sent me with Jamie Huscroft to the Children's Hospital. And that day, how I viewed community service, it changed my life. Like, I was in a room with an East Indian family from Toronto. They had gotten terrible news about their son. I argued with their son for about 30 minutes on whether or not he was going to put the Vancouver Canucks jersey on because he was a Maple Leafs fan. It was a fun interaction. The nurse was laughing. The parents were laughing, just lighthearted and fun. I walked out of the room. The nurse was bawling her eyes. I was like, did I do something wrong? And she said, you have no idea what you just did. And I was like, I just hung out with a 8-year-old. What are you talking about? And she said that like a half hour before I got there, the family had gotten terminal news about their son. And for 30 minutes, they didn't think about it. And I mean, it still gives me the chills today that just the simple investment of time can change someone's life. And that was why I became so ingrained in the community.
And jumping so far ahead just because it fits with this, and we'll come back to the Canucks stuff, but you're coaching in Vernon now. Like, is that a story you've told those kids?
So I haven't told that specific story yet, but I have made it non-negotiable, and community things are something we do. And we every week we go and read to kids. We've got a floor hockey seminar that we do in the community. On Wednesday morning, myself and the 5 older guys in our team, 3 captains and 2 other guys, showed up for the Elks toy drive at 7 a.m. And I, the way that I choose to lead is I don't expect my players to do anything that I'm not willing to do. And so if they're there, I'm there. And that's kind of how I run the organization.
No, okay, that's awesome. But, back to the hockey side, you played such an intense game. Like, it was fun to watch. And like John said, like, for Vancouver, as much as they love a good star player, like, they love the work, like the worker guy that's going to chip in, but he's going to leave everything out there. Like, did you see that as a role for you, or was that just you playing hockey? You know what I mean? Like, because it seemed to me, and knowing you just a little bit, you don't do anything halfway.
Yeah, I don't dip my toe into too many things. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to cannonball in, and I'll deal with the consequences of the freezing water later. And some of that, obviously, there was moments that were reckless, but for me, the way that I played was the most fun way to play. Like, I got just as much enjoyment or hype or energy out of getting a big hit as I did scoring a goal at times. And, I knew that was my role and that was my responsibility. And, being on a third line, because that's where I played most of my time, with the exception of, post lockout or whatever in 2004. I mean, pre-lockout.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, like, I was going to be out there and create energy, and that's what I wanted to do. I heard a statement years ago when I was a kid, like, but by the end of a nice session, a game, a tryout, whatever, to make sure that people knew who, at that time I was number 12, but who number 12 was. They didn't have to go to the program to see my name, because they've had to look so many times already that they knew that 12 was Cooke. And that's kind of how I approached the game.
Did you have regular line mates in Vancouver over that period of time? Guys that you ended up playing with most of the time on that third line?
So I think the most success we had was when I was with Artem Chubarov. Chuby and I played 2 or 3 years together and built some real, continuity and connection. That's probably I didn't really have the same. Had Kess for a little bit, had Brendan Morrison after Elaine Vigneault came in. I had Mo for a little bit. So kind of just floated all around, when I started there, I had Chris McAllister and Donald Brashear, and I was playing center, So, there's quite the transition of line mates that I've had over my course of time there.
You must have felt pretty comfortable with those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget when I got called back up my second year, and Brash pulled me aside and he just said, "Whatever you do, just keep backing up, because I'm coming." I like that. I kind of like that.
That's music to the ears right there.
It's a ticket to ride,
In those years, did you always view yourself that you'd be a Canuck for life?
I did. Yeah, I truly did. And I in all honesty, like, I was number 12 when I got to Vancouver. I couldn't have 12 because Steamer has it up in the rafters.
Yes, he's got dibs.
Yeah, and so Patty O'Neill tried to give me 21, and I thought that was a terrible number. So, and he's like, "It's the same number, just reverse." But I decided on 24 because it was double 12, so maybe I'd be twice as good. And I truly wanted to be Stan Smeel. Like, that's who I wanted to be. I looked up to the man. He coached me. I respect him. Like, he spent time after time bag skating me because Mike Keenan wanted him to, and he'd be apologetic the whole time he was doing it, and just such a great human that, like, he's the man I wanted to be. I wanted to be Stan Smeel. I wanted to play my entire career in Vancouver, end up there, be a part of the organization for life, kind of thing. And things change, and management changed, and coaching staff changed, and the opinion of me or what I brought to the Canucks kind of eroded, and it led to me having feeling like I needed to leave.
So you went to them and asked for a trade? You wanted to be moved?
Well, I don't think Mr. Vigneault gave me much choice. If you look at my minutes in 2005, 6, and 6, 7, 6, 7, 7, 8, like, my minutes went from being 14 to 16 minutes a game to playing 8 minutes a game. And, my very first conversation with him, he basically paid me the ultimate disrespect and said that he doesn't know what I bring to the Vancouver Canucks. Pretty much the first thing he said out of his mouth. Now, Alain and I have made up since and had conversations since, but that was a 2-year kind of battle that ended with me being an unrestricted free agent and Dave feeling like he had to move me because he knew that I wouldn't come back.
And what was it like walking into that Washington dressing room after, so many years in Vancouver and change?
I got lucky because I got lucky because I was traded in junior. I played 2.5 years in Windsor and then was traded to Kingston after World Juniors my third year. And I went through like a 2-week span where I'm not sure I took a hard stride because I had a different logo on my chest. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to like invest into that. And so I went through a big learning curve there. So I think the trade to Washington was actually at a super exciting time, the group that they had there. And then Cristobal Huey and Sergei Fedorov both got traded there at the same deadline. So Washington was making a move to push to make the playoffs, and brought three guys in that they felt they could help. And I truly felt like I needed to resurrect my career. Like I needed to go out and play. I was going to get an opportunity. I needed to go out and play so that I could have a job the next year.
So that was Gabby coaching?
Yep.
So Bruce Boudreau's your coach there. I got to admit it, you went through a lot of coaches, Matt. when you think about it, when you think of starting with Pat and then going to Mike and Alain and Mark, and there's where's your coaching style and all of that with all these guys that you played for, including the guys in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think if I had to say, I'm probably most aligned with Dan Bylsma. Obviously, got a chance to win a cup with him. He's an ex-player, kind of knows and understands the game. I loved how he prepared us systematically to switch on the fly, and I felt like he had a great on-bench feel to make an adjustment at a whistle or at a TV timeout. And Crow was great at motivating us and great at system, but we had to wait till intermission to make a switch with Crow back in those days. And sometimes I felt like that was too late. So I think, I've kind of amalgamated my coaching style into a hybrid of for years I wrote down things that I liked about coaches and things I didn't. And so then as I'm coaching high school hockey in Minnesota post-retirement, like, who do I want to be as a coach, and what is the best style, and how do I motivate players? And I think the coolest thing for me right now is the communication piece of, I know that I have to build trust if I truly want them to buy in. And then each player needs something different in different moments. And that takes intentional thought and intentional time with each player to get to know and understand those nuances to be able to maximize their development.
That as a coach, that must be a challenge, because it's easier to have one message for 18 or 19 rather than 18 messages for 18 or 19.
True, but it's still the same message. It's just, I think it's more delivery. Mm-hmm. I think it's more, I have certain players on my team right now that I can challenge on the bench to give me more. And I have certain players on my bench, if I ask them for more, they're going to turn the engine off. And I know that. I know that's how they function. And so I need to handle individuals differently.
I'm curious. So you're in the BC Junior League, coaching the Vernon Vipers. How would you define the start that you're off to this year?
Well, I got to go before the start. I was hired the end of July,
right?
And I hired my two assistant coaches the end of August, and so recruiting was really non-existent. And so I was at the mercy of what the previous regime had done. And there are 6 players from that original list that are still on the team. So I'm also the general manager. And so I get to move and bring players in, find players. And so all while trying to change the culture that was here, build a program from within, and then go and find players that are going to help us be competitive. And so the wins haven't been there as much as I'd like, but 95% of our games have been 1-goal games. We've been in every one of them. And I feel that we've spent the first 20 games building an identity, and we've finally arrived. And so my goal from taking over, because of the timeline, was by January, no one wants to play the Vernon Vipers. And I think we're a month ahead of schedule.
And does the manager get along with the coach?
Some days.
It's got to be tough when you don't have anyone to yell up at. You're like, who made that move? I did.
Yeah, exactly. There's no at the end of the day, you have to take some chances at times, and sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. The thing I believe in is that our coaching staff's focus is we believe you can develop and win at the same time. And so developing players is the business that we're in, and prepare them for the next level, whether that's a move to the CHL or whether that's, a move into professional hockey in Europe for some of them, or whether that's to head to the NCAA. So we feel that, every Monday is a development day. It's an individual skill day. We're broke up accordingly, and we're helping guys get their individual skills that you can't touch on in a team practice, get better. And then, some of these kids are 19 years old and they've never been told to stop in D-zone coverage before. And you'd be surprised that it takes a month and a half for that message to stick. But as we're learning, repetitiveness and practice helps them understand the expectation. And in classic team building phases, I think we're slowly coming out of the storming phase where, in the beginnings, like a newlywed, so you're they all kind of believe what you're telling them, but then it's hard to do what you're asking them to do. So then they kind of resist. And that's that storming phase where you're, not really accomplishing much, but then it becomes, you're in your norming phase where everything becomes normal. That's who you are, and you've built it out. And then after that, you spend time in the norming phase where you just are living your identity. You become the performing phase. And I feel right now we're in the norming phase. We played a really good game, lost in overtime to Salmon Arm last weekend, which is always a rivalry, as they're just in our back door. And then we beat West K on Saturday night at home, and they're the top team in the league. So the game never really felt in doubt, and I felt like we played the right way and limited the chances against, and just got to go out and hit the repeat button and just play it over again. And if we do, I think we give ourselves a great chance to be successful against Trail.
Did you always want to coach after hockey, after your playing career?
In Vancouver, I don't think I was thinking about it. I was maybe a little young and dumb and was going to play for the next 50 years. But I know my time in Pittsburgh, spent a lot of time with Dan and learning, learning and asking questions and writing drills down. And so much so that Doc Emmerich used to give me trouble with saying that I was becoming more like a coach than a player while I was still playing. But in Minnesota, I knew that I would coach. And, I took some time after, my last year in 2014-15, I took some time to be with my family. And that kind of removed me from the pro game. And it's been difficult to try and get an opportunity back. But the beauty of it is that I got to live in the world at the highest level, and I don't need to chase that. I want to help kids get better, and I want to develop. And so I have a really committed owner in Vernon, Tom Glenn, and he's committed to development. He's committed to, building back the prestige that the Vernon Vipers once were in the early 2000s. And if this is where I'm meant to be, and it makes sense, then this is where I am, and I don't need to rush on to the next opportunity. This is what I want to do.
I've asked other ex-players that are coaching now, you have the high of scoring a goal or getting in a fight or whatever it was as a player.
Or all of the above in Matt's case.
Yeah, or all of it. What is that for you now, coaching? Is it seeing a kid put together what you've been working on, or a win, or what is that?
I mean, coaching is the closest thing to playing. Whatever emotions you go through as a player, you're also going through those emotions as a coach. And as you build relationships with your players, you do feel those highs and lows for each individual player, but then you also feel this sense of accomplishment and enjoyment out of having a team finally buy in and play the way that that they're capable of. And last Saturday's win was a big moment for us, and it was emotional. And we'd lost 7 in a row. 3 of those in overtime, but they're still losses. And so, all while feeling like we were going in the right direction, which is, if I was to tell the general population that you're going to lose 7 games in a row, but you're going to get better each day, I don't think they'd understand that. And as a player, I probably would have had a really hard time with that. But, being able to step back and take a real panoramic photograph of where we've been, where we're going, and how we're going to get there, it's a positive thing.
So you went through some tough times as a player. You became a polarizing figure as a player. Did you learn more from the adversity than you did from the victories as a player that you can apply to coaching now?
I think that there's lessons from the successes. There's lessons from the failures. Mm-hmm. I think that, the work put in after the adversity has definitely shaped my coaching perspective and style more than just going out and scoring a goal. And, I would say that even from all the way back to year 1, I worked with Saul Miller. He was our sports psychologist, and I actually reconnected with him this year. But Saul at the time basically said, take the 5 things in the game that you're most insecure about and run them through, take 30 minutes and run through succeeding in those moments, so that when you get to a game, you will have been successful in those moments. And I felt like that helped me exponentially on hard rim down the wall and terrified that the D-man's coming to take my head off, or face-offs when, it's a chess game and I got to go against Sakic, or, any of these strong guys that have been strong in the dot. How am I going to beat this guy in a face-off? So things like that have helped me help young individuals kind of pursue their goals and development. And I've used a lot of those lessons in my teachings.
Guys ever ask you about playing with Ovi and playing with Sid? Because when you look at it, 2 of the greatest players of all time, you got to be teammates of both of those guys, and you're coaching now, and they're still playing.
Yeah.
And sorry, Cookie, before you answer that, how many of the guys have you, like ex-players you played with, you've brought up to kids on your team that they don't know who they are? I had a kid this summer. I tried showing him, like, how Zetterberg would always go on his backhand and put it through the D's triangle and take that shot. So I was trying to show kids what I was talking about, and I said, like Zetterberg. One of the kids goes, "Who?"
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not even that long ago.
Yeah. No, it's good thing there's video. There's video,
sometimes YouTube cannot be your friend, though, Matt. You know that as well as I do.
Google's never wrong, ever. But yeah, listen, I know that, like, I coach the game very differently than I played, and I know that all my kids are going to go onto YouTube and watch some of the stuff that somebody hiding behind a screen wanted to go and put together, a reel of all of these things about me. But a long time ago, someone in the media said any press is good press. And while I don't necessarily believe that wholeheartedly, I've learned to live with the good and the bad. And go back to Sid and Ovi, like, both of them unreal teammates, unreal individuals, 2 far ends of the spectrum, but have both found ways to have uber successful careers and lead their teams to championships in their own way. And I think that's the cool uniqueness to our sport, is it's still a 20-man game and you need everybody. And there's not one playbook that wins because there's human error.
Are you amazed? How long do you think Ovechkin will play for?
Do you think he's going to try and play with his kids or what?
I'll tell you what, my own personal opinion is I think he will retire in Washington and then go back and play in the KHL. That's my own personal opinion.
I don't think that. I think that he's
okay.
I think he's going to play until he doesn't feel like he can contribute. So whether that's another year, 2 more years,
Or 5.
whatever it is, when he feels like he's not contributing to the success of the Washington Capitals, then he's going to stop playing. And I don't think that he goes back to the KHL. I mean,
You don't,
no, I don't. I feel like he's a very different person than Jaromir Jagr.
No.
Yeah. Jaromir would stay on the ice after a game and skate for an extra hour and a half when guys are going out for dinner, you know. So that's not Ovi. That's not who Ovi is. Ovi's competitive and he works his butt off, but he's not that type.
So as you push through the second half of your season, what are you talk about development days and all of this? Like, what's a successful year for the Vernon Vipers this year?
Are you asking the owner or are you asking me?
I'm asking you. I know what the owner's going to say.
Yeah, I mean, we were a last place team last year, and for me, success is making the playoffs, being a dangerous team, and then my goal would be to push 4, 5, 6 kids on to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a success in year one for me, because we've changed the culture, we've changed the environment, we've changed the standard and the expectation, and we're pushing towards threatening to win a championship. And that's, I would like to get us to a point where year after year, we're a perennial threat to win.
Well, you're doing it in a great town, that's for sure. And you got a pretty good facility.
Yep. No, I mean, facilities top notch. We had 2,700 fans at the game on Saturday night. It's busy, it's loud, like it's an electric building to play at. Now, I need to reject every home game in September because the weather is way too nice and no one comes. But that's just learning by a trial by fire, learning by experience. September home games are pretty silent.
Have you guys played in Trail yet this year?
No, we played Trail first 2 weekends at home because they redid their whole plant and
the ice plant and everything.
So they started like the first 3 weekends on the road. So I don't know why we didn't play here tonight and tomorrow back to back, but we play here tonight, then we play in West Kelowna tomorrow. So we have a 5-hour bus ride.
That's an awful bus ride back. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then next week we play in Trail on Friday night and in Vernon on Saturday night. So
perfect.
Just why not, right? Like who wants to make things easy? So,
well, you know what? It doesn't look that far. It doesn't look that far on the map, man.
As the crow flies, it's not. You get going up and down some of those passes.
You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. I grew up at the foot of Anarchist. I grew up at the foot of Anarchist Mountain. So,
little bit of advice though for tonight: bring some earplugs, because if you guys get scored on, that goal horn in that building is outrageous. I got back for a game last year. My grandma's got season tickets. She'll be a few rows above your guys' bench. And oh my God, it is insanely loud.
Oh, that's cool. That's good. Hey, before we let you go, one of my favorite stories, you and I did talk about this summer at the alumni golf tournament, was your time in Newfoundland and coaching the Newfoundland Growlers.
Yep.
And you had to recruit Terry Ryan, if memory serves me, to play a game because you were short. And I mean, I still think St. John's is a great hockey town, and they got to find a way to get, maybe, I know they got junior hockey back, but pro hockey in that market. What was the experience of living on the Rock like?
I loved it there. The people are some of the most friendly people I've ever met in my life. Now they have their own language, and there's an adjustment period there. But generous, caring, support hockey. Some of the best food I've ever had. And I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world and have great food. But Newfoundland has some amazing food options, and travel is a challenge there. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to is, to get pro hockey there, in my opinion, whoever takes it there has to own a plane.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to own a plane. And you got to fly in all your visiting teams. Like it's the only way to be successful there. And because otherwise it's just too expensive to have team. The whole reason why it fell apart when it did was, teams were spending $60,000 for one weekend to come to Newfoundland and play 3 games, whereas it might cost them $9,000 to go on the road in the U.S. So it just didn't make sense. And when the owner fell out of good standing with the league, the board of governors decided that they were done paying to travel to Newfoundland, unfortunately. And it sucks because it's a great market. It truly is a great hockey market, and there's some great people that are involved that have been, Glenn Stanford, just to say name one. He's been part of every iteration of pro hockey that's been there, back to the baby Leafs, and he's a good man that deserves to have hockey there.
Agreed. And you guys had one of the great sweaters of all time.
Yeah, I mean, the logo's iconic. It was a awesome colors, and it was my first entry into pro coaching, and you in the East Coast as the head coach, you do everything and you get paid like you're the head coach. But I enjoyed it. I lived at the rink for 16 hours a day and truly dove into being successful. And it's too bad we had 2 weekends left when we got removed from the league. We were in second place in our division. We beat Worcester twice the weekend prior. I felt like we'd finally arrived as a group, and we don't finish the last 6 games of the season and don't get to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, it was a real shame. And I tell you what, I don't collect very many pieces of memorabilia, but a Growlers sweater is in my closet because it's the coolest looking thing. And I like the white one actually more than the black one. So the white one's kind of cool. Hey, Matt, good luck with the Vipers. Good luck this weekend. And thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Truly appreciate it.
That's Matt Cooke, former Vancouver Canuck, 9 seasons on the West Coast with the Canucks. Landon and I'll be back after this on 100% Canucks.
All right, listen up. Today I want to talk about giving 110%. Giving 100% means giving everything you got. Giving 110% means giving 10% more than is humanly possible. If we're going to win as a team, we need 100% of you guys giving 110% 100% of the time. If only 50% of you guys give 110% and 50% of you guys give 100%, I guarantee you 100%, we'd only win 50% of our games. Suppose 75% of the 110% gave only 50%, and 50% of the 100% gave 25%, and 75% of the 110% were not feeling 100%, then we'd be in a heap of trouble. That's why we need 100% of you guys giving 110% 100% of the time. Okay. Let's go out and play some hockey.
6-5 loss in regulation. That's like no joke. When I was telling him about how loud Trail's building is, giving up 6 goals there, like guaranteed he had a headache at the end of the night.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, we won't talk about that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. In 3, 2, 1. So we taped that interview with Matt on Friday before his game in Trail. His team is, as he described it, learning how to win, learning how to play better. And they are 4th in the interior division of the BC Junior League. I'm curious. I was probably one of those guys that when I saw Matt Cooke play, whether it be in Vancouver or Washington or Pittsburgh or even those last couple of years in Minnesota, I did not picture Matt Cooke as a coach. That his DNA as a player was such that he was fun to watch. As we talked about, sometimes he crossed the line and he learned from that adversity. But perhaps that helps you in the coaching fraternity these days.
Yeah, it was, it's interesting how, there's not a lot of ex-players that were like stars that become coaches. Like you just assume that good player, he'd be a good coach. A lot of time it's the depth guys that are sitting there and really paying attention to the systems and what's happening and getting to see how the coach interacts with different guys because, well, honestly, you're sitting there a bit more than the stars are and can capture more. I would have been the same as you of never thinking that he'd get into coaching and then getting to, meet him and talk to him a little bit, especially this past summer. It makes a lot of sense. Like he it would have seemed that his personality would have been kind of erratic of like how he played and super intense and going that way. But he really thinks the game well. He has worked with younger kids before and coaching high school hockey in Minnesota after he was done. And seems to have a really good rapport with the kids and really cares about it. And of course, he wants to create a championship winning team. But at the same time, like he understands that he's there to develop the kids. And as much as you need to focus on wins, there's a lot more wins than just the W column in junior hockey and making sure that guys are constantly getting better. And, I've worked with and kind of scouted a couple of the kids that are on his team from my year coaching in Langley in the same league and then doing summer skates. Like he said, I believe it's only 5 guys off the team last year are still on there. Like he's brought in some really good young players and starting to slowly build that team up.
By the way, I'm one of those guys that thinks that exceptional NHL players are brutal coaches because they see the game on such a different level than the journeymen do, the regular guys on the bench and the guys on the ice, and they have no tolerance for not being able to see the game as well as they see it. I will tell you a story. So after he was forced to retire in Chicago, Bobby Orr became an assistant coach for the Blackhawks. It lasted 2 games.
Yeah.
Because and was angry at the practices because he couldn't understand how the players couldn't play the game the way he played it. Mm-hmm. Well, there's only one Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
And so that's why great players rarely, in my opinion, become coaches because they see and watch the game. It's like a different language to them. In so many ways.
He's definitely not at Bobby Orr's level, but going into Grand Rapids a year behind Thomas Tatar. We were drafted the same year, but because he hadn't played in the CHL, he was from Europe. He played as a 19-year-old. He had the late birthday in the American League the year before. And so we get into my rookie year. It's about halfway through the year, and now I'm playing with him on a line. I was on a bit of a good stretch, and he was he's a skill player. He's still playing over in Switzerland now after a bunch of years in the NHL. And I remember not getting him the puck in a situation. We get back to the bench, and he's just giving it to me. And I'm just kind of listening to it. He's like, and it finally he ended with, "You got to get me the puck there." He's like, "Why didn't you pass it?" And I just looked at him very calmly, which was unlike me. And I just said, like, "Tats, like, I didn't see that."
Right.
Just because you see it, like, my brain doesn't work that way. I would have loved to have seen you and given you a tap in back door.
Right.
It's just not there. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And he was just a good NHLer that put up some good points. That you go past that to the Stars, and it's exactly what you're saying. They see something and they just don't understand why the other person can't see it. To them, it's like going to make toast in the morning. You put no thought into it. You just go and you make the play. But for some of us, we got to remember, where's the bread? Is it in the fridge or is it in the pantry? Do we need new peanut butter or is it the old one? Right? Like, there's so much more going on in our heads. To them, it's you just make the play.
All right, so the Canucks have 2 more games on this road trip. Los Angeles Saturday night, and then on to Denver, who have only lost once in regulation. It's going to be a tough task, but it's funny. I since the saber rattling of the veteran UFA trade rumors and the memo to the other teams have come out, I think the teams played better. I think the teams played with more intensity. But these are going to be 2 tough games. LA's not great at home this year. They were the best home team last year. They're still a tough out. And then there's the Colorado Avalanche that are on a different plane. Yeah,
let's just talk about LA for right now. The Avs are a whole nother thing. But for the Kings, it's, they like to play a bit more low event hockey, and the Canucks, that's going to be a good test for them today. They've been playing decent the last 2, but at the same time, this team's not one in LA that you can go and turn pucks over against and make their night a bit easier. Like, you're going to have to fight through. You're going to have to grind in the offensive zone. You're going to have to work for your ice. And, I think that's the good test for Vancouver today to, after having 2 good outings, even though one was a loss, to really kind of refocus and know that they're going to have to, using a Kiefer Sherwood line, they're going to have to put their work boots on today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, with back-to-back games, you don't have time to work on that power play that, as you said, went 0 for 7 in San Jose. Thanks for this, Landon.
Yep, have a good one.
That's it for this edition of 100% Canucks. Thanks to Matt Cooke for joining us. Thank you for watching or listening this edition of 100% Canucks.